Okay, so in this video, we're going to go through section 4.1, which is the introduction to sampling methods. And so this is really just vocab and then being able to identify things within the vocab. So I am going to do a couple examples just to go over those words. So the first thing we start with is population and sample, which are words that we've learned before, right? So population is the entire group of individuals we want information about. You can think about it as it's always going to be the largest group they're talking about in the problem. Then there's the sample. The sample is who we're actually collecting the data from. And so this is going to be one of the smaller groups because it's a subset of the largest group. So if we think about it in terms of like a Venn diagram type of situation, the population is this whole group, so everybody we're talking about. And then the sample is a subset of the population, meaning that everybody in the sample is a member of the population. So that can be a bigger set or that can be a smaller set. Both of those are subsets. And so we have to kind of read the question to figure out which of the subsets are the sample. So for this first problem, we've got researchers who would like to assess the overall health of white pine trees in a state park. So if they're looking at the overall health of white pine trees in a state park, that would mean that that's likely our population. So that's all the trees in the park is a pretty big group. So then using a computer program, the researchers selected 100 random points and assess the trees closest to the selected points. Of the 100 trees, 24 showed damage to their lower limbs. So again, the biggest group is all white pine trees. In the state park. And then we have two other groups that we have to figure out which of these is the actual subset, is the actual sample. So the sample is everyone that was assessed. So all the trees that were assessed were the 100 trees that were closest to the points. That last group, the 24, was indicating a result of the survey or the study. So if 24 showed damage to their lower limbs, right, that's what they were assessing. And so that's a result, not the sample. So into that, then they start to talk about two different sampling methods. So we're talking about many different sampling methods in this unit. This is just the first two. These are also the most biased sampling methods. So they gave us convenient sampling. Convenient sampling is when you select individuals that are easy to reach. So it's like if I was doing a survey, guess who I would survey? All the students in my class. Do I have a good representation of the entire school? I only teach stats, so probably not. I might have a good representation of seniors. And then a voluntary response sample allows people to choose to be in the sample responding to a general invitation. And so think about this as even like on every receipt that you get a chance to be a part of a voluntary sample, right? They give you a code so you can get a coupon for something free. If you answer their survey. So that would be a voluntary response. So I put an example where we're looking for convenience and then an example where we're looking for voluntary response. So researchers would like to assess the overall health of white pine trees in the state park. So same situation as above. Which of the following methods for choosing the trees would be considered a convenience sample? So remember, convenience, we're looking for easy to reach. So a ranger hires employees to assess every tree in the park. So if I'm assessing every tree, that does not sound easy at all. So that would not be convenient. Then the 100 trees closest to the ranger station, if I'm the ranger, that's convenient, right? So this is likely going to be the answer. Let's look at the others. A grid map of the park is used, 100 random points in the grid are chosen, and then you select the tree. So that sounds like work, not necessarily easy. So I'm going to say that that's, again, not going to be an answer. And then finally, each tree is tagged with a number. Again, sounds tedious. I'm going to go and tag every single tree so that I can then pull 100 numbers. So the correct answer would be the 100 trees closest to the ranger station. Okay, so closest is convenient. It's easy to reach. The next one's asking about a voluntary response. So remember, this is where I'm just like putting out a general invitation and I'm inviting whoever wants to respond to respond. Okay, so how far do US workers travel to get to their jobs? A researcher would like to collect information on the commute distance traveled by workers and considers many methods for collecting data. Which one is a voluntary response sample? Workers are invited. Ooh, so that sounds good, right? I'm doing an open invitation to share their daily commute distance on a website. That sounds like that's probably our answer. Workers at a large company are each asked to share their daily commute distance. So the difference between these two is that I'm going up to you and asking you this question. I'm not giving you information on how you can get to my survey, right? I'm actually asking you the question. And so that's not going to be volunteer basis. I'm not putting it entirely in your hands. Think about it that way. The researcher stands in a public area and asks each adult to share their daily commute distance. Again, I'm asking, so that's not volunteering. And then a researcher takes a random sample of adults from a large town and asks, again, asking, not volunteering. So this one where they're inviting the workers, that's going to be a voluntary response sample. The last thing that they talk about in this section is bias. And so these are both biased methods of sampling, meaning that my data is likely to be either an underestimate or an overestimate of the value I want to know for a couple different reasons. So if I think about a voluntary sample, I'm probably going to complete a survey if I had a really bad experience or if I had a really good experience. If I had just an okay experience, I'm likely not to fill out that survey because it's not worth my time, right? And then if I think about it being a convenience sample, I'm not getting a good idea or a good sample of the people in the area, right? If I'm just choosing people that are close to wherever I'm at, then they're likely to have similar opinions to each other just because of where you're asking them. So in this example, we got city residents. They want to figure out the proportion of city residents that use public transportation at least once a week. So they're city planners. So these are people who work for the city. They would like to estimate the proportion and collect information from workers entering a large office building in the center of the city. So this sounds like a convenience sample, right? They're asking people as they enter an office building close to where they probably work too, since they're city planners, so they work for the city. And that's usually in the city center. So I know this is going to be a convenience sample. So my possibilities are the first two options. It's not going to be these because it's not voluntary response. They aren't sending out a survey and inviting you to fill it out. Which of the following best describes the potential results of this survey? So if I think about this, they work in the center of the city. So we can think about that as an urban area as opposed to a suburban area, right? So if they are working in an urban area, then are people going to be more likely, overestimate, or less likely, underestimate, to take public transportation? Okay, so there's a lot less parking, parking's expensive, that kind of thing in the city center. And so this is likely to be an overestimate because we're talking about the city center. Okay, so that is all of the concepts that it went over in the first section of chapter 4. So again, really just vocab and understanding what situation relates to each of the vocab words.